All right, I want to move on to another related matter. Secretary Foster, perhaps you can explain, or if not, maybe the Minister can explain. How does Fayez Elhasani meet the character test of Australia's Migration Act?
Apologies, I think you please repeat that.
How does Fayez Elhasani meet the character test for Australia's Migration Act?
Senator, I won't comment on individual cases or people.
Okay, well, the Minister for Home Affairs has commented on this case, has been asked about it in question time, so if he's willing to comment on it, I don't see why you can't.
I can provide information on the character test.
I don't need generic information on the character test. I'm familiar with that. I want to understand how this person meets the character provisions of the Migration Act. We've seen on the front page of the Daily Telegraph revelations that 3 of his brothers and 2 of his sons were members of listed terrorist organisations, operatives in the armed wings of listed terrorist organisations.
I'm not exactly sure what Minister Burke has said about this in Parliament, but what I can say is that all visas from people coming from Palestinian-occupied territories have been checked by ASIO by the same personnel and under the same processes that were in place under the former government.
Character provision of the Migration Act is not a matter for ASIO. It's a matter for the Department of Home Affairs and the Minister. That's why I'm asking questions to this department about character. How does he meet the character test?
And so, Senator, as Mr Thomas has explained, we're constrained from discussing details of individual cases. It is, of course, always the Minister's prerogative to do so, but we as officials are not able to do so.
This is a person who hosted Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine at the Rawasi Institute, which he was the director of and the founder of, and held a press conference with them where he said we need to resist Israel by all means necessary. The Minister said, has commented on this, but you're not willing to?
So, Senator, I just explained that as officials we're constrained from commenting on individual cases.
Okay, I'm going to assist you and the government with some further material about Mr Elhasani and the Rawasi Institute, which he directs. I'll table in a moment a series of images, but I'll go through them in some detail first, that have been exhibited and published by the Rawasi Institute. It includes vile anti-Semitic material, for example, a post that depicts rats with a Star of David and a blue and yellow flag on them, clearly saying that Jewish people are rats. Another one where a devil is depicted menacing what appears to be a Palestinian child. That devil has the Star of David around him. Many instances of the glorification of Ismail Haniyeh and Yahya Sinwar, senior operatives and leaders of Hamas, a listed terrorist organisation. They are depicted variously as father figures, as champions of the Palestinian cause. There are other images of rockets being launched from Gaza into Israel, posted as a celebration on this social media account of the Rawasi Institute. Others where children are depicted holding photos of Ismail Haniyeh or Yahya Sinwar after their death, and praising those terrorist figures. Others which depict militant fighters with weapons and glorifying them, praising them for their acts of terror, including people who appear to be depicted as members of the Al-Qassam brigades and other listed terrorist organisations in Australia. Various celebrations of Iran's attacks on Israel, various celebrations of the Houthis' attacks on Israel and others in the Red Sea, in international shipping, children being depicted next to rockets being fired, cheering and celebrating. I mean, even a specific image praising the person who recently, in a terrorist attack in Israel, drove a car into a bus stop, injuring civilians in a terrorist attack, I think including killing one elderly person, innocent civilian. How is someone who founded and directs an art institute, so-called arts institute, that's published this virulent anti-Semitic material, an appropriate person to come into our country and stay in our country? Minister, perhaps you can help, because the officials don't want to.
I assume, seeing as you're so concerned about this, that you've presented that material to the security agencies for their consideration?
As I've said before, Minister, character provisions of the Migration Act are not a matter for ASIO, they're a matter for Home Affairs.
And have you, I assume again, given you're so concerned about these matters, that you've presented them to Home Affairs for consideration before bringing them out in a public hearing?
I hope it wouldn't require me to provide the public Instagram page of the Rawasi Institute to the Home Affairs Department.
Are you asserting that that Home Affairs and ASIO haven't done their job? How are you to know that they haven't considered that material?
This is why I'm asking these questions, Minister. I would like to know whether or not the department has reviewed this material, whether they think it meets the character grounds of the Migration Act. There's another photo of a blood-stained Israeli flag being set on fire, which is posted on their Instagram. All this is freely available on the internet, Minister. You don't need to be an intelligence agency to find it. The Minister recently refused the visa of Candace Owens, an American commentator. And I strongly supported the Minister's decision to do so. She's engaged in despicable rhetoric against a range of communities, including the Jewish community, but also Muslims and others. She's not someone who would make our country better by coming here. But Fayez Elhasani has done at least as much as Candace Owens has done, if not more. She hasn't hosted a press conference with Hamas. Fayez Elhasani has. She hasn't said she's raising her son in jihad and raising her grandchild in jihad, as Fayez Elhasani is reported to have done. How is this person a fit and proper person under the character provisions of the Migration Act to come to Australia, Minister?
Well, all I can do is keep repeating the point that we rely on security agencies and departments who have responsibility for considering the character of applicants when making decisions.
The Daily Telegraph has printed photos a couple of weeks ago of him embracing members of Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a listed terrorist organisation. They are dressed in full military fatigues and brandishing weapons. This is a clear association with a listed terrorist organisation. How does that meet the character provisions of the Migration Act?
I refer to my previous answer.
Just draw your attention to the time, Senator Patterson.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. We come back.
Okay, thank you.
We just have to go to a break.
I want to return to Fayez Elhasani, and in the spirit of helpfulness, I want to provide some further information to the department about Mr Elhasani. This document, which I'll table in a moment from the SMHS News Agency, is a report from an event to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the killing of Qasem Soleimani, who was the Quds Force commander of the IRGC, who was killed by media reports suggest the United States strike while he was in Iraq. Mr Elhasani was one of the guest speakers at this event, and there's a photograph of him speaking at the event, and his remarks are reported by this news agency. He praised Soleimani. He said things to the effect of, and I quote, "Jerusalem was still in his heart and mind, and he did not hesitate for a moment or fail to support it and support the Mujahideen with all his strength in order to liberate it." He goes on to say, "It is a difficult place to stand today on the first anniversary of the martyrdom of the martyr of Jerusalem, the martyr commander General Qasem Soleimani, to remember and remunerate his humanitarian, cultural and jihadist virtues. In fact, we've not been able to distinguish an aspect of these virtues which needs to be underlined for the huge volumes so as not to underestimate the right of this leader and his comrades, even if it is under his fingertip." He goes on to praise his martyrdom in order to liberate our beloved Jerusalem from the defilement of occupation. He goes on to say, "Everyone who knew and accompanied the martyr confirms the size of his humanity, nobility and a high religious and jihadist culture through which he looks at the unity of the entire Islamic nation under the one command to liberate Jerusalem without fanaticism for any sect or ethnicity. This is the martyr of Jerusalem, Qasem Soleimani." This is yet more evidence of Mr Elhasani praising terrorism. This is more evidence of Mr Elhasani advocating violence against the State of Israel and Jewish people. It's available on the public record. Was the department familiar with this information before I just read it out to you?
Senator, I'm not able to talk about what we do and don't know about particular cases, and any speculation or engagement in discussion by officials of the department could put in jeopardy future decisions around any particular case. And I'm very concerned to ensure that I don't do that.
Okay, well, let me ask this way. The Director General of Security, Mike Burgess, has publicly said that the act of simply liking a tweet that advocated the destruction of Israel or was in support of a terrorist organisation would be enough for someone to not pass muster for a security test. Obviously, security checks are not Home Affairs' responsibility, they're ASIO's responsibility. But if that's sufficient to not meet a security test, surely it's enough to cause a visa to be cancelled on character grounds.
So, Senator, I think we've been on the record, and I can say generically, and Mr Thomas can provide some information about generically the things that we would consider in a character test. What I can't do is related to this particular case.
Okay, well, has the Minister requested a brief about Fayez Elhasani?
Again, Senator, I'm not sure I can comment about the procedures around a particular case, but I'll take that on notice and speak with my General Counsel and see if that's something I can answer.
Thank you. Minister Watt, you did an interview on 4BC Radio a couple of weeks ago where you were asked about this case, and you said that the Minister was reviewing Fayez Elhasani's visa. Is that accurate?
I may have got that wrong at the time. I think I may have been confusing that case with one of the other cases that was in the media at the time, and I've forgotten the individual involved.
The person who was speaking at the anniversary of the 7th of October on the steps of Lakemba.
It may have been that case, yeah.
Possibly. Right. So Fayez Elhasani's visa has not been reviewed?
I'm not sure. The answer that I gave in that interview, I think I may have been confusing the case with the other one that received a lot of publicity,
right.
And I'm not sure. I actually don't know for sure whether either of them are.
Okay.
It's probably best
well,
to
that
rely
visa
on...
was subsequently cancelled, the one you're referring to.
Yeah, it's probably best
after
to...
that individual left Australia. But in light of this further information that you've been provided, will the government now review Fayez Elhasani's visa?
Well, we've repeatedly said that the government and relevant agencies continue to consider information about individuals. It may well be that information you've provided today has already been considered. I'm sure if it hasn't been, it now will be, and we'll continue to take advice from the department and security agencies.
Because it's very hard to reconcile the standard that Mike Burgess has publicly set with what this person has done. He's done far more than simply like a tweet. I mean, he's hosted a press conference with Hamas, among other things. If the Director General says that's a threat to security, surely it's also sufficient grounds to cancel his character visa, and I urge the government to review the case very carefully, and I'll table this document to assist. Thank you. Moving on